There was Stephanie, and she's like sits in her chair and she's like swinging her legs and she gets down.
In the Corbeil home, you exercises, there's a little stumps type of thing. And shorter ladies can put them down and sit on a chair and that's where their feet go. You can't reach the floor. These are comfortable chairs.
We're live on YouTube now.
Okay.
Wait for the mayor. Greg?
Any boats down your way? Mike,
Yeah.
quite a few.
Yeah.
We haven't seen too many, eh, Steve? Odd one.
Had a couple dinners go by.
Yeah, that's about it.
I've had, canoes and kayaks and people out on the lake, yeah. It was just like the ice just went off.
Like I said, the water is cold. You don't want to be flipping a kayak this time of year.
Two guys in a boat there, they were fishing down at my end there.
I've gone in twice.
Monica. Hello, Monica. We're live.
Yes.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone, to this meeting of May 9th. So it's good to be together. On that note, would you proceed with the adoption of the agenda?
Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Sir Kelly. Mayor Ruegers. That the draft agenda presented to council and dated the 9th day of May 2023 be adopted as prepared.
In favor? C'est bon, Carrie, thank you so much. Accepting the minutes of the previous meeting.
Mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Trahan. Mayor Ruegers. That the minutes of the council meeting held April 25th, 2023 be adopted as circulated.
Favor? C'est bon. Any business arising from the minutes? There being none, declarations of conflict of interest or pecuniary interest thereof. There being none, chair's comments. Just a few comments. I believe, Monsieur Tracy, that this evening we have a new system for sound. Would that be correct? Is that what I see there?
We're back on the old mic system.
And so we're very much hoping from the public, if anyone has any issues with sound, that they let us know, because we believe now that we have it completely rectified and that this should be now a very good system. So please, if anyone's out there and you're not satisfied with the sound, do let the municipality know. I also want to mention what a great day for cleanup day. And on that note, I know Councillor Trahan, you've always been somewhat our lead on this, and how is the day going, in other words?
Well, I assume the day's going well. I was working today, so I was looking on social media and looks like some of the people are getting out there, and they have till I believe Thursday to submit their photos, and hopefully they do, and we have a little gift for them if they do submit their photos. So hopefully that goes well. I'll be out delivering them either Friday night or early Saturday morning. So.
Very good.
Yeah.
Basically, people have until it's Saturday, that's the free.
Free dump day on Saturday, yeah.
So that gives a whole week for cleanup. Yeah. It was really nice to see the schools as well participating, both schools, and congratulations to the municipality for organizing pizza. I think all in all, it was a very successful event for both our schools, and so well done. I do want to say that it's very timely that this evening we have a bylaw. I call it the Clean Yard bylaw that will be put forward. So I'm not sure if that was just by coincidence, but it's great to see this bylaw coming forward this evening. I also want to say that Madame Clerk, I always call her, and Monica Hawkins, she took care of ordering these signs. As we know, we've always been in the municipality a supporter of the Crime Stoppers program, but this one here, legal dumping anonymous, anonymously. We have two of these signs, and so we're going to be looking to put them up at the right spot. So if you have any suggestions in terms of where they might go in the municipality, please direct them to Madam Hawkins. So again, further activities of that are in support of clean municipalities. So well done. And also, I think that we bring our grant program for our electric charging stations. It's just because it's with Earth Day Canada. And so all in all, it's a good agenda for, given that today is our cleanup day in municipality. So well done, municipality of East Ferris. And on that note, we have a wonderful delegation this evening, Seniors Villa, which is such a critical component of our community. And so we'd like to call on Madame Maitland, Donna Mason, to join us at the table. And good evening. So Madame Maitland is the chair of the Seniors Villas of East Ferris. And so on that note, we turn it over to you. And I believe you've come forward with a few thoughts and ideas of how there might be enhanced collaboration between both the villas and the municipalities. So we turn it over to you to speak to that.
Thanks so much, to Mayor and Council for permitting me my capacity as president of the Seniors Villa of East Ferris and present to Council tonight. I have brought notes because if you know me, I tend to get a little bit off track and might start talking about all kinds of things. So before I do start, I want to thank Councilor Terry Kelly for starting to come to our meetings. It's really nice to see municipal participation in Council at Seniors Villa of East Ferris. So thank you. And Antoine Boucher recently came to the board, the Fairleigh board, to give us an explanation of the oil contamination spill from this site across to our Highway 94. So the board as a whole now has a greater understanding of that history. And again, thanks for allowing us to use the municipal hall, the whole Port Beal Hall, to hold our monthly meetings. A little bit of history about Seniors Villas of East Ferris, I think, is necessary for those who are listening, especially anybody who might be unaware. Most people would not know that Seniors Villa of East Ferris is an independent, not-for-profit organization. We own and operate the 28 affordable senior housing units located at 6 different addresses in Port Beal and Estherville. We're not a committee of council. And contrary to popular belief, we're not DSAB housing, nor are we related in any way to Castle Arms or Castle Homes. In fact, until very recently, the current board of several times, Castle Arms was a contractor of ours that we hired to perform property management services. So I think that's really important for people to understand about who exactly is Seniors Villa of East Ferris. Our only source of funding are the rents that we collect from our tenants. A time-limited operating subsidy payment we receive from CMHC, and it's funneled through the DSAB, which helps to offset some of the construction costs, the original construction costs associated with our Port Beal and Catherine sites. That in total was a $360,000 funding, and it's spread over the mortgage period to the maximum of 30 years. So we still hold that mortgage. Seniors Villa of East Ferris, since its inception, thank you very much to many who are not here today. Through a formal agreement with the municipality, DSAB and CMHC, we also enjoy financial support from the municipality as far as a tax break goes for our locations. We're exempt from 50% of all taxes levied from 2019 till the end of the 20-year agreement in 2029. So that's coming up fairly quickly for us. And we're exempt from all taxes levied for the first 10 years of the 20-year agreement, and tax exempt for 50% levied for a 20-year period that's ending in 2026. So thank you for that. Because of funding support we have received from CMHC through the DSAB, our rents are capped at 80% of the district's market value. And they're further restricted by the annual rent increase permitted by the Landlord Tenant Board, which last year was 2.5, or this year is 2.5%. So we can't increase our rent by more than 2.5% or 80% of the district market value. You might think that that's a lot when you look at the % of the district value, but for example, according to CMHC's report, which determines our availability to raise rents, the average rent of a 2-bedroom home in the district of Nipissing is $1,500 in 2022. 80% of that amount would suggest that we can charge $1,200 for rent. That's not the case because of how market rent was determined and agreed to by the inaugural board, DSAB and CMHC at the very beginning. And the average rent was not $1,500. Seniors who rent the Vilas today pay $828.20, increased by the annual LTV allowable of approximately $20 a month in 2023. So it started when many of our seniors still today live, they're the original tenants, their rent started at $675 a month. So when you consider that we're only allowed to raise it by the Landlord Tenant Act of, whatever the 2.3% might be, that's why we're only at $828.20 today. Our vacancy rate is extremely low. We had 0 vacancies last year and 1 so far this year. Should we have any new vacancies this year, we will be able to charge those units out at 80% of current market rate, because for the first time, there's a vacancy and the rental rates across the district have risen quite substantially. It should be noted that we have a wait list of 60 people currently. The current board of directors, I know that many in the community and including on this council will be happy to know that we've recently revised our tenant selection policy to prioritize citizens of East Ferris and remove unverifiable and subjective selection criteria that was there in the past, where people were assigned scores for such things as volunteering, health status, and emergency situations at application time. It really didn't make sense to the current board that if you were applying and our wait list was 58 people, that you suddenly had an emergency, but we knew that our vacancy rate would be 0 this year or maybe 1. So the emergency situation would have had to have lasted 20 years before you might in fact get an apartment. So we removed that criteria, and now there are 2 wait lists. One for people who, when they applied, are citizens of East Ferris. They represent, ironically, 50% of the wait list. And there's another wait list for those who did not and do not reside in East Ferris when they made application. We will only go to that list if no one on the East Ferris list is looking for a place where we can have a vacancy. The other criteria that we must adhere to is our agreement, 65 years or older in order to make application. The only other, the second tenant can be less or younger than 65 only if they are a spouse of the original tenant. So you can't have a son or daughter live with you unless they're 65 years or older. This might shock people. The amount of earnings allowed according to the province is a household earning of $81,200 in terms of affordability as far as CMHC goes. So our new selection criteria means that someone who applied 4 years ago and meets the criteria as defined in our agreement, 65 years and older, and our age criteria, and resides in East Ferris will now be offered a home before anyone who applied last week, last year, today, regardless of any other situation or circumstance. This selection criteria, we believe, is much more transparent and fair and leaves absolutely no room for anyone to misinterpret the reasons why someone would or would not have received tenancy at Seniors Villa East Ferris. So with that little bit of background, there's a reason I am here today. We're bound by the terms and conditions of our agreements with the government until the year 2040. So for 30 years, when I spoke of how our rents can increase, we're bound by that, a 25-year agreement and a five-year sunset. Financially speaking, this means the rent is capped for another 17 years. Our buildings are aging and the cost of goods and services is not going down, and it's not always it's just, the truth of the matter. We've recently replaced all tenant sheds at both Port Vale and Catherine sites. Roofs, water tanks, air conditioning units, to name a few at those sites, 20 units in total, built in phase 1, will soon need replacing. The roughly $200,000 that we have been able to garner over years in as far as cash assets go, we've managed to save that. It will not be sufficient to pay for expected capital replacement needs, not to mention the unexpected regular maintenance needs such as lawn cutting, snow blowing, bookkeeping, audit expenses, and ongoing admin site septic system issues that have been there from the very beginning. So we appreciate the temporary tax break. That at this time, the board of directors is asking that council, not unlike other councils in our region such as Mattawa, who actually own and operate currently the seniors housing unit asset without any level of government assistance, consider assisting us in any way possible in the medium and long term. So we're looking for a partnership from an in-kind way. And I'll just give you a little bit of an example of what our costs look like on an annual basis. Snow removal and lawn maintenance come in at about $25,000 a year cash. We consider that our monthly rental is about $28,000. It takes 1 month to pay for snow plowing, 1 month to pay for lawn cutting. Bookkeeping, hydro and mortgage payments, property maintenance is 6% of our rent revenues. We run a business, but that business being able to sustain itself in the long run in a healthy financial way is hindered in the end by its operating agreements. So when someone owns a business, Tim Hortons does it. When things raise, they raise the price of coffee. We can't raise the price of our rent more than our unions say that we can, no matter what our costs may be. The board is made up of professional board of directors, mostly full-time working citizens of East Ferris. Everyone who is on the board lives in East Ferris. And not only is it fact that East Ferris is the envy of many municipalities across our region and beyond, but we have the envy of many people in the board members that we've been able to attract very recently. Very young professionals sitting in our board. We have a couple of retired. We have a business owner, and that's a big deal today when volunteers is hard to get. People were attracted. We put out a call for the very first time in history, a public call for board members last year, and we were really successful in attracting these professionals to our board. So we don't actively promote the availability of affordable housing in East Ferris. We just can't. It doesn't make sense that we do. We do have a website, and thank you. It is also mentioned on East Ferris municipal website, but we can't meet the demand today. Our tenants are long-term, and when they leave, they don't leave by choice. The municipality and us together should be looking for ways to support the expansion of affordable housing in East Ferris for not only seniors, but perhaps the population in general. We have committed new board of directors whose job today is to first consider ways in which we can meet the medium to long-term needs of our operating costs. With the business of owning and continuing to offer 28 units to citizens. And we're asking you for ways to consider with us in which you can support us in meeting your own official plan of providing a mix of housing types and affordable housing adequate for meeting East Ferris's housing needs. That's right out of your official plan, by the way. So spring is upon us. The grass is growing as we speak. It needs to be cut really soon. The Edmund site's septic system is angry, as it always is every spring. RFP should soon go out for next winter snow plowing services. The tenants are happy. Our properties are well maintained, and we like to keep that way. So we're hoping that we can work together to support the housing needs of our residents of East Ferris. However you see fit to do that, and on behalf of the board of directors for senior Yes, thank you so much for having me today and for considering how we may do that.
But thank you very much, Madam. That was a really good historical overview in 10 minutes. You did a super job. Very informative. And on that note, we turn it over to council for any comments or questions that you may have of Madam Maitland.
First of all, Donna, I just want to say thank you very much for everything you've done. It's people like you that makes things happen in our community, and I know you don't get paid to do what you're doing, and I know how many hours you've put in. We've talked on several occasions, and I take my hat off to you and thank you for everything you do. And hopefully you stay on. Absolutely, I'm in for discussions with my counterparts here to hopefully try and alleviate some of your issues. I know that it's going to be tough, but also it's necessary. So by all means. You have my support, and I really appreciate the upscale report that you gave us too. So that really helps, and it clears a lot of lots of light on a few things that questions I had. You nailed about three or I had 4 questions. You nailed 3 of them. My only other question is the hydro, and it's just a more exploratory question is. Are you guys receiving like the lower cost of hydro? I know, like say, for certain seniors that live by themselves in a house, they do get that hydro subsidies. Is that chance of you guys getting that or?
So I'll mention that hydro's not included in the rent.
Right.
Hydro or propane, so the tenants pay both hydro and propane. So while we have paying for quality units, we're not allowed to profit from the cost of propane. So we net it out to zero at the end of each fiscal year. So we try to estimate what that propane will cost, and then we either give a rebate or charge more at the end of the fiscal year, but the tenants themselves take care of their hydro bills. And we will, since this new board's come along, we have a newsletter that goes off to them, so any new programming, we will send that out in our newsletter to our tenants so that they're aware.
That's good. That's all I have.
So I went through, because you sent a letter to us, and I sort of went through and pulled out all the asks, and because we're going to be doing budget. So
It's a timely presentation.
it is a timely presentation, right? So.
deadline for budget weeks ago.
So So anyways, March 2023, anyways, do you sort of have a budget of your ask, like what money would be attached to these things that you
So
would,
we're looking at anyway, for example, even, fire inspections, both cost us money, and last year we did call municipality and ask, and it was going to be $15,000 cost in order to have a fire inspector from the municipality one person. Something as simple as that will save us $1,500 for, inspections on, the whatever that might be around, on the septic system. So any way at all. So it's not really a dollar value ask. Grass cutting is upon us, as I was saying, so if there was an opportunity to maybe do your students that you hire annually to do grass cutting at each of the 3 sites. One is larger than the other. Our biggest site that happens to be across the road here. Catherine's site isn't a very grass, doesn't have a lot of grass there. So it's not even enough for us to hire full-time students. So full-time students need 30 hours a week minimum. There's not enough grass cutting for us to do. That's why we can't do that. So there's a cost to us, and we hire a business, and you know how hard it is to find students to work. And again, someone to supervise those students, we don't have, because we're all volunteers and most of work, and those who don't just don't have the time. They're volunteering other places that they have a life to live. Any way at all that we can, legal support, we have to send our legal agreements off, auditors, bookkeeping, anything. So we're open to discussing anything at all in any way in which you can lend support, not in the short term, but in the long term. This really does become a partnership between the municipality and senior affairs. Thank you for the question.
and thank you for your work. It's awesome.
So we could say, I'm just kind of high level lawn cutting, fire inspection, legal, bookkeeping, snow plowing,
Storage of files,
storage of files.
scanning documents.
You could probably easily say 65,000.
If you did it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we recognize that, I certainly recognize, and a lot of board members do that. Let's just use snow plowing as an example. You have streets to plow, so we don't expect that, we would be the first place that you might show up to, or maybe we are the first place that you show up to, so that you can get on with street plowing and plowing other municipal sites where it's happening, get to work or telephone to say, why are you not here yet? Yeah, it's not an all out ask. It's really, I think, the first time that we're going to sit down very seriously and say, how can you be a part of senior affairs? Originally, municipality, when seniors will live East Ferris was here, and Jason, you might have been here at that time.
Started a couple years after the first villa was done.
Yeah, there was a lot of support in kind through staff in time. And as soon as and by volunteers who were mostly from service group where all the time, it's not a time when board directors should be washing windows and cutting grass. It's actually insurance liability. And those who did that took it upon themselves in a very dangerous way to to face, we have people climbing ladders and, putting light bulbs outside and, Pauline, I know that you were washing windows at one point as a board member. It's not something that volunteers should be doing. We are a business and we need to operate like that. And there are cost savings, but if we have to go back to the day when the reason that you're a board member is so that you devote your time that way, it's not only dangerous, but it's going to be hard to find.
Councillor Kelly?
Yes, thank you. Once again, I've board meeting, I've been thanked on behalf of council, the new board and all their efforts. Steve, you touched on a couple of really good points. We have the infrastructure already in place to some of the requests. I mean, we go, Steve and I, as former volunteer firefighters for 20 years, nothing unusual. We used to go for smoke alarms during the season, and we would give advice about fire and fire safety, the residents free of charge. So I can't see reason for charging anybody in the village for the same advice. So that's just a starter. Grass and snow, and I did bring up at one time hiring an extra student or two. I mean, we don't hire that many students, but it's a short-term deal. That's in the short term. For capital costs, if you could come up with a figure give us an idea before budget time if possible. And it's under I think it'd be under consideration, in my opinion, because the general public view the villas as theirs. It's East Ferris Villas. They don't realize it's a separate entity operated by a nonprofit board, and you're incorporated nonprofit. So it wouldn't be a partnership, but it certainly, I think there's a lot we can do within kind engineering. We have 2 lawyers on retainer. I can't see a problem there. We have a very competent engineering staff. We've got professional building inspectors. And we could go on, but I think it's time we look at the short term and maybe the long-term ramifications when it comes to our budget, which is this.
If I might, Councillor Kelly, on that, even a building to do the professional, we can look at the rules and fail and one of the complaints in 4 or 5 years. But we should really be getting a professional assessment of our buildings. Because as I said, Edmund Septic needs to work. We don't know the cost. We'd have to bring people in. So a professional building condition assessment, but done by your engineering and your would be super helpful and it would help to answer those questions. We're not in dire need, but it's about time that we look at the future because without a plan for how do we plan for this asset, how do we manage it in the longer term? It's not going to be good.
And if it's not profitable, it's going to be frustrating. And when frustration sets in, mistakes get made and people can walk away. It's a volunteer board.
Well, and I look at, for example, in Mattawa, they're not bound by any government funding at all. They did it all themselves. They purchased the building, they funded the building, and they're not charging affordable. They're charging affordable rate when they don't have to. But they're in trouble right now because they're already recognizing 1 year in that it's not enough. So here we are bound by an agreement until, for 30 years that we can't raise our rents in order to meet the demand for a capital investment.
We think, but not just speaking for myself, we realize the problems. I think as a council, we realize the problems you're up against. And we also realize how important it is to maintain the quality of the villas that you have. So I think it's with due consideration, come budget time, we'll have to take a look at it.
Great, so we'll get back to you and if there's any way we can meet meeting together to discuss more in depth than tomato mouse, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Donna.
okay, good night now. You're welcome to stay. So on that note, thank you. So as we've said, it was one part of our discussions this week. We do have budget meetings on Thursday and Friday of this week, so it is a timely topic. Committee reports, Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. There's next meeting, I guess, is this week. It's on on Thursday. Any comments or any questions related to any public works issues? There being none, Community Emergency Management Committee, there being none. Did we have any flooding in the municipality? I think so.
No, we didn't have, never had any flooding in our municipality. We've had some, maybe above normal spring, levels of water, but there's no.
Fine.
I drove around the municipality, checked out all the creeks, checked out ponds and et cetera. And,
Nothing.
The lake is high.
no,
It isn't?
No, it's coming down. Lake is receded about a foot in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Roger.
Must have opened the dam up at Montville. Sorry, Jason.
No, it's okay. Mayor and council, just from year to year, now the staff tend to know where the issues are gonna become, and they tend to go out, and if they can do any remediation work in advance, knowing that that's the areas.
We do that.
But some of it's beyond your control, right?
Yes.
Yeah, especially the beaver dam that we had when we were at OGRA. That was something that was gonna be looked at this summer, and it just happened to let go in the spring, so.
the last water high water we had, I'm not sure when you moved here, but it was probably about at least 2 years ago. So, and that would be, my dock's 40 feet long and half my dock was underwater. That's when we had high.
Okay.
But that's good. We've had a fairly good spring then. Thank you for those comments.
Yeah.
On that note, we move to Fire and Emergency Services Committee. Next meeting is May 5th. So it was held, but the minutes are not yet correct. Did you want any comments or keep it for the next meeting?
Yeah, well, we'll wait for the next meeting.
Planning Advisory Committee on May 17th, the
Yes.
Adjustment Committee of Adjustment as well. On May 17th, Recreation, Parks and Culture as well. I guess it's in June, July. That said, I do want to just mention I do believe council's been invited to go and see the new kitchen at the East Bears Community Center. I think we've seen the pictures. Anyway, terrific work by the municipality. It looks really good. I have not personally seen it, but I have heard people who have seen it, and I believe Councillor Champagne saw it on the weekend, and the comments are very, very favorable. Well done. So,
I saw the photos and holy lifting.
Nice.
Beautiful.
well done.
Yeah.
The other elements as well that you mentioned, you covered up the windows so that when there's events, you have something. When there are events upstairs in the community center, when there's during the winter, it's often been problematic. So now we're able to cover the windows. People don't have to cover them with paper.
Yeah, so there's window coverings and all the windows that oversee the ice surface from the banquet room, I would say, boardroom, as well as the hall. Flooring was done as well in the banquet room. Kitchen's looking good. I know if we get one comment, I've mentioned this to a couple council members, if anyone comments, like the usual users of the kitchen, about the island being only half the size. It was give up half the size of the island and get a dishwasher assembly line, or don't get a dishwasher at all. The room is only as big as it could be and it could be expanded. So, but there is great prep area still, dishwasher, it's been making bigger, there's been a door added, so there's an in and outdoor now just to control basically traffic if you're a caterer and if you've got quite a bit of staff there. Brand new, all the equipment's brand new. So a grill, a stove, 2 brand new fridges. The whole dishwasher assembly. The only thing that was left, the whole room was gutted except for the hood. Oh, over top.
Super.
Yeah, a very good job, Mr. CEO. That was.
I didn't oversee the project. I mean, Greg dealt with the contractors. I would say the contractors did a pretty good job to start halfway through February and done at the end of April. It's a pretty big job to gut a kitchen like that, a commercial kitchen, and you know, the timing of all the subs as well. They didn't control the equipment coming in. That was a subcontractor. And when you're dealing with an electrician and plumbers and all that, I mean, that was a 2.5 month job done very quick.
That was a big deal too, because that was grant money, right?
Yes.
So you know what, that's beautiful.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
So.
The other element, maybe it's not our place to mention, but I think it is appropriate to say that Club Action 50+, they do get funding as well to redo the kitchen at the Port Park Hall. So that work now, I think the plan is underway for that, and so we will see improvements there as well. So it is great when we're all working together as a community, you know, different groups to collaborate to get things done. I think That's absolutely
Yeah,
wonderful.
like our kitchen project's $250,000 kitchen.
Yeah.
That's what it cost.
Yeah.
Gut and redo.
Yeah.
So that's 250,000 with taxpayers' money that didn't have to be spent, right? It was left out of the original rental project from 2009 at the arena because there was only so much money, right? It was over budgets.
You're right, Mayor. It's huge and we all know what a kitchen rental is. Sure, land you right.
It's in the average house.
You know what, so get grant money or we get some other funding from a different organizations, you know what, that goes a long way.
Yes.
Super.
And it also dresses up our showpiece, which is the community center.
Yes, yes.
It's one of the centerpieces of our community.
A nice little piece to that as well, so you're aware, there's different users there, so I know, it's Diane that does the funeral luncheons.
Mhm.
She needs her own kind of locked up area that she keeps her stuff instead of bringing it every time there's a funeral. We've now got the early on program there. They feed the kids snacks and that. They need stuff. So what was done, cabinetry was added for those kinds of programs as well. But then what we did was locked up certain cabinets on a portable, movable, cupboard, I would say.
Right.
So now like Diane's got one section locked, she gets the key, right? And then the next group gets one. So they've all got their own little area now that's lockable and they can keep stuff there. So that was part of, we had a discussion with the user groups before going ahead with the rental to just see what are the things that we can add to help them out. So. Yeah,
Well done. So that brings us to Economic Development Committee. Economic Development Committee, and so Deputy Mayor Riakers, did you want to provide any comments?
Sure. Yeah, so we had Dominique Marlowe and Guy, yes, okay, who presented so that we understand their funding and what their role is. Then we also we went through the mandate letter. Stephanie St. Louis, who is one of our new members or we're all new actually on economic development, is today going to a conference in North Bay for the digital divide. And then we also talked about the animal control bylaw. So we have a resolution talking about that. We, as a committee, talked about it for two meetings. And we came to the decision to not go forward with the amendments. There were three main reasons. Number one is that we talked to the staff about any complaints. There were no complaints. So the bylaw that's currently there is holding. So, and doing its job. So that was one of the reasons. The other reason is increasing or making those amendments. Council or the committee members were talking about it's avian flu is a huge concern right now, and there's no vets that specialize in chickens. So one of our committee members actually raises chickens. She has to drive an hour and a half to get medical supplies and has to administer them themselves or herself. So that was one of the concerns. And if avian flu comes through, you have to call your flock. And then what do you do with all of the animals? So there were many different reasons. We were going back and forth, and we decided not to go forward with those amendments. So that was the big thing. We also talked about the trade show. It's very successful. We also have Stephanie St. Louis came with a proposal to have the youth entrepreneur trade show to be parallel to the trade show instead of incorporated in it. So she's organizing it at the school. And so that's going on right now. And the library is helping out with that, with the fees and organizing registration. So I think those were the highlights of that meeting. So.
Any questions? Any actors? Councilor Chan.
I'll reserve my comments right now and a few things I want to think about first, and I'll make my comments directly to later on.
Like tonight or at a later point after the meeting?
Later, probably later.
Correct, okay. I do want to comment on the resolution for, some people fix it, all the files or.
Is okay.
I'm going to say that we had brought this forward as a topic to address as a council, because it had come forward from citizens, and there were citizens in our community that had made that request to the council. And that said, as we engaged down that route, we may have gone a bit far in wanting to address the issue. So basically, if I find if we don't have anything to propose at this point, we're best to hold with what we have. Does it mean that we have to longer term maintain what we have? No, it just means that for now, we need to resolve, because otherwise it's open. We had passed the first and second reading, and it was like, these issues we can't leave open. In other words, we had to put so right now, you're suggesting that we resolve it this evening, but longer term, if there are concerns, it can be reintroduced and brought forward and examined.
I think the last term it went past, that was the last term. It never came back to this term, correct?
So it's in our plan as we've done.
But it hasn't went through any first or second reading.
It's still open, it still remains active. It's not.
Yeah, well, you said you want to close it.
Well, tonight we have a resolution that are actually calling that we keep in place the 2014.
The old bylaw, yeah.
Correct, so that we maintain it for now until we have an opportunity to review it and then bring it forward. If that is something that is.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that what you were saying was
Same thing.
same thing.
Yes. So that's where we're at with that. I must say, I think it may be important that we take a look, because longer term, because we do have people that do operate activities and that they're not necessarily in conformity with what is our current bylaw. And so, but currently, I mean, we are in a good position. There's no complaints, there's no requests necessarily. I think before they weren't necessarily complaints, they were requests that we revise our bylaw to see if we could maybe become to have enhanced activity. So so basically tonight, the Economic Development Committee is bringing forward a resolution for us to pass that says that it can be, because we are not clear on where we'd like to go, that we maintain our current bylaw. So we're going to resolve to do that. So the staff now are going to take the what we had passed will now be closed. I don't know if that's the right term, closed or
Maintain the status quo.
maintain the status quo. And so that's, and then we decided the council, we examine the issue and we can work from there. So that's basically, I guess that's where we're going as a next step. I do want to just mention quickly about the youth trade show. I was personally very excited to see that. I know it's not much time to organize it, but I just wanted to congratulate all the organizers of the trade show, the Economic Development Committee and the personnel, because it's bringing new guys out providing us all as well. I think the motion, the poster, that with I guess the NOAA Nation and so I think that is just wonderful. And I understand we've had some youth that have been registering for the trade show. You know, it may not be huge this year, but I think it's setting a tone that activity is important for us. And so congratulations to all involved. Taking a step. So on that note, I think we're ready, unless there's further questions, we're ready for the resolution on with respect to poultry.
Sure. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Kelly. Deputy Mayor Akers. Whereas the Economic Development Committee brought forward to their agenda of April 26, 2023, the matter of reviewing amendment proposed bylaw number 2014-19, a bylaw to regulate animals in the municipality of Ferris. And whereas bylaw number 2022-10, amending the definitions on Schedule C fowl to bylaw number 2014-19 received first and second reading for the proposed amendments on February 8th, 2022. And whereas the Economic Development Committee feels that these amendments to bylaw number 2014-19 are not required at this time. And whereas the Economic Development Committee recommend to council that bylaw number 2014-19 remain standing with no amendments, be it hereby resolved that council approves of this recommendation.
All in favor? Devon, abstain? Okay, yeah. Concur. So we agree that it's because you'd like to see it brought back in the future when or in the, and when we've had an opportunity to discuss it as a council.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Carrie, thank you so much. Thank you for Economic Development Committee. Moving forward, we come to board reports, and on that note, again, Deputy Mayor, you you were busy.
We're working on a survey for the trade show. And the board members are going to go around and survey people. In that, we want to access people who don't use the library, because most of our people are mothers and their children using the library most intensely. And then and they're the ones that are also on our Facebook page. So we're not getting outside of that group as much. And so the board members wanted to survey and see if we can get information from other people as to what services they would like the library. That being said, we're looking at how the board or library is being used. There's always talk about expanding the hours, and really it's being used. The highest activity is around 12 o'clock on the hours that it's open, not at the evening, so people are pushing for it to be open later. So we're also we didn't get the application in for the Francophone funding, so we're preparing that for next year. So we're ready, and that's to expand the literature, the Francophone literature in the library. Also, they were looking at a people counter, so it's kind of an interesting application in that it counts people, but it also tracks them, how they're walking around and where they're using the library. And so this would be something that would be good for funding proposals. And if we want to be shovel ready, if we want to expand the library, how is the library being used? So that's something that we're sort of debating as to a purchase for the library. So
That's good.
It's well used, I think.
Yeah, some good ideas anyway.
You know, a lot of people don't realize that you can take out fishing tackle. You can take out pickleball brackets, shoes. I mean, it's amazing. what they-
baking pans, they've got baking pans.
Baking pans was a start of it. Who's gonna take out bacon? They get used.
Pans, yeah, lots of great things. Wow.
Walking sticks.
Tennis rackets.
Yeah,
Walking desks, yes.
yeah.
It's a well-used library.
Yeah, so maybe we should partner like with the participation, right? Is especially those little pedometers that how people can track.
Maybe advertise that again, just to circulate that, just to remind people of what you do have to offer to, you know,
Right.
for them to sign up. I think that might be a good idea too.
Yeah, and I think they're going to use that at the trade
Trade show, right on.
right? As
That's
to
good,
to
good.
expand into other areas, other populations. So getting more people in there. And then we're also, I mean, Stephanie St. Louis is partnering with or sort of the library is helping her out with that, the youth trade show. And they've got lots of great programming for youth entrepreneurship. So that is something that they want to get involved with. So lots of great programs.
Did you guys think about maybe doing like a certificate for the use? Because I know the other communities have done that for their youth program. They've done nice little certificates for the use, or whatever their entrepreneur trade show table is doing. So if you, I'm not sure how many use you have, but maybe the library board can, so you do a little survey or do a little thing with that also. Just a thought.
These things they help to promote, right? And you take pictures, you post them, like we did with CFA today. I find that would be excellent. Yes, I like that idea.
Yes, okay.
Well,
I was approached by a student from Nipissing University taking phys ed, who's going to be a teacher in phys ed. But they mentioned the signage for both the library and the fitness center is getting rather aged on the buildings. I'm thinking, get some folks together for the library and the fitness center on the building itself, because as we know, we're well offset from the road.
Yes, agree.
And a lot of people, you have to explain exactly where both of them are. So I'm looking at, and maybe a sign, I was in Powassan this morning, and they've got stop signs now with a little battery, and there's sun is charged by the sun, and they light up. The stop signs do, where they've had accidents or problems with their traffic. So something like that might be ideal. Well, the signage really get that.
Yeah.
So I'll get back to the board on that.
Sure. Maybe something for our budget.
Well, it's been a partnership since the fitness center opened. Library and the fitness center have this, symbiotic relationship because they take care of our memberships.
Yes, our fitness center is I was so surprised again recently when I went in to see how big it is and so much equipment and it's so clean.
Our treasurer is sitting beside you. Well, we've got over $100,000 worth of equipment there. And it's incorporated nonprofit.
Yeah.
So with no funding, so it's done well. Anyway.
Okay, but on that note, thank you so much. We move to no police services board, except we had our signs, Crime Stoppers to mention. So this is the opportunity here for anyone that's on any of these agencies or ABCs, as we call them, to comment. Castle Home, DSAT, Health Unit, or the North Bay Manitoba Conservation Authority. I don't know if any of you have any comments to make on that note.
I just,
Councillor Kelly.
I was in the editorial page of the Nugget today that British Columbia was thought to be the leader of innovative activities to help the homeless and the opioid crisis. But what they're doing is not working because they're in worse shape than they were 5 to 10 years ago. So everybody's looking for another solution. And that's of course, every city in Ontario is facing the same problem. So that's come up at the DSAB board. And we're also looking for solutions. And so far, nothing's come up. But it's a matter of the professionals investigating what's going on. But BC seems to be, they were once the leader, they were the first ones to have the safe injection sites and so forth, if I'm not mistaken. But it hasn't alleviated the problem. In fact, it's grown exponentially. So it's a factor. I'll keep you apprised of what's going on.
Any comments or questions?
Just the other for the Mattawa Conservation. So it's our neighbors down the road are having some issues down in Mattawa. They're having some flooding. So it's they've declared an emergency down there. So I don't know if anything came across for any assistance or anything. I'm not sure. I was kind of keeping my eye of what's going on down there. But anyway, they're in kind of a little bit of hardship down there, but that's kind of the priority right now down in Mattawa right now with their flooding. So I feel bad for the residents down there and the staff and everything. And I know everybody's been kind of pulling together between the fire department and volunteers and everybody trying to help each other out there. So, but with say that with our community, and we're thankfully and knock on wood that we're okay. Yep.
I must say.
It's a real high output of what's going on around our area. So.
And we know that the Councillor Champagne has been active at the health unit. I guess there's a succession plan that's going forward for Dr. Chirico, and so I know he's been active there. And I should mention Councillor Champagne is not with us this evening because he is still at the Phenom conference. And I know we didn't speak to that, but you were there as well. And saying yes. So on that note, thank you so much. There's no departmental reports, no notice of motions. We come to the bylaws. So we turn it over to you, Monsieur Trottier, and guide us through that.
Okay, so the first bylaw is an agreement with Earth Bay Canada. That's for the 2 EV stations that are going to be installed here at the municipal office. So this is an agreement that needs to be signed and returned. And in the end, they're going to fund 2 EV stations at an upset limit of $29,120. I'm not sure, Greg, if you've got anything more that you wanna add to this, if you can.
That's so it's not just at least one on the lines. This is. Feasibility of budget decisions. And so we've passed the research stage and got right to the doing stage. So we were fortunate enough to be selected by the grant committee for the candidates we see funding. So basically, the 2 level 2 charging stations includes monitoring software, which gives the municipality the ability to control how the program is administered. So say we have a vehicle that's electric in the future, we can set it up so that we just use the station as a need to, or we can set it up so that there's a for other using stations. So here's that. Just stations. Does say we want to maintain stations for a technical period, but given the worst of it, so solutions, so they will be.
I think so much. I think we'll move each bylaw one by one. So if you want to proceed, yeah.
Can we move her to seconder, please? Counselor Kelly. Speaker, Counselor Trahan. Whereas council for the municipality of East Ferris deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw at this session, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Thursday Canada, a registered charitable organization incorporated under the federal laws of Canada. You're at a first, second, and third time passed and numbered 2023-19, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
All in favor? They both carry. Thank you so much. And again, good work by all. We move to the next bylaw, Clean Yards bylaw.
So this is this evening, Mayor and Council, first and second reading of the Clean Yards bylaw. It will repeal bylaw 1836 from 1998, so a 25-year-old bylaw. That bylaw, our current one, has no teeth. I mean, in terms of enforcement. So right now, the current bylaw stipulates, you can't have your grass taller than X amount of inches, no tires in your yard, inoperable vehicles, all of that. But if there's any enforcement, you got to take the person to court. Basically, it's a more costly, longer way of resolution. So the new bylaw is modeled after North Middlesex. We changed it, to fit our needs, basically. It's got a schedule of fines, so we're going to do first and second reading tonight. And then it's going to go to the Ministry of the Attorney General for approval of the short form wording and fines. And then once it comes back, it'll take force in effect. The idea with this one then is that bylaw enforcement officers can go out and issue tickets every day for the same infraction if they want. And hopefully we get better resolution that way than trying to take a matter to court. This was one, it's a long time coming. The bylaw we should have had probably several years ago. It was one we wanted to tackle last year and didn't get to. In all honesty, we don't have a lot of issues. They tend to be the same repetitive issues every spring, same properties. So this one became urgent for us this spring when we were dealing with the same issue we have for the last 3 years. So take a look at the bylaw. It's first and second reading. We're going to bring it back for the third reading after Mag looks at fines and that. But it's pretty all inclusive. Myself and Greg and Paul and Kim, a bunch of us worked on it together to make sure we cover our bases. So I think it's a pretty good bylaw.
I read it over a few times. I think you guys covered everything that I could try and come up with to try and see if there was anything missed. And it looks pretty solid to me.
Good, good.
The only thing I could is being in from a rural area down south and driving around here is the inoperable vehicles. Like I know people work on vehicles. So that was one thing I was just that stuck out that I'm kind of going, man, that might raise up heckles where I was from. So because people will have 2 or 3 different vehicles that are not operable.
So the answer to that is I would say that staff are always willing to work with the general public. We're not known to just show up and give a ticket the first day.
Okay,
Maybe Paul's always been like that, and staff that will replace Paul will do the same, right? So we try to go by way of education first.
Mhm.
You know, warnings, give copies of bylaws, talk to them. It's more when it becomes an issue. Then the ticket is the easy way to go about it. Now, when it comes to operable vehicles, we've got to watch because we also have a zoning bylaw. So if somebody's working on vehicles and there's 5 vehicles in the yard, I mean, it's not zoned for that. Like, you got to watch, is it a hobby versus a scrap yard versus a, you know, we're all aware of about 3 to 5 properties in the community that need a real cleanup in terms of 5 vehicles and 5 camper trailers and all that. Like, you want to have a campground, go operate a campground. You want to have a scrap yard, zone properly for it. You know, if you're gonna go in one yard and I think the bylaw stipulates up to 5 motor vehicles per yard, right? Like, I mean, if somebody has a really big property in Cape Horn and said, I have 5 kids, they all have a vehicle, and so do me and my wife, and we have 7. I mean, there's common sense.
okay,
I guess I would say.
Yeah.
But some of this bylaws tackle about a handful of properties that are constant issues that don't want to follow the rules. And this will be easy way of a costly way for them if they don't want to adhere to the bylaw.
Yeah.
I guess is.
okay.
We're not looking to go out there day one, jump in a vehicle and say, have at her with the ticket book and collect some revenue. But it's more of a way than saying, okay, now we got to pay David Jermaine to write legal letters and possibly take it to like, what is it, a part 3 offense at the court. And then you wait for months till you can get it like into court. Years ago, we took somebody to court and won, but we weren't awarded the costs. I mean, do we want to spend 50, 60,000 in legal costs again to not win? Technically, it's not a way to go about it. So, but I would say the staff always work with the residents. It's more the problem ones that, you know, say it's my property, I'll do what the heck I want with it. And we do see that.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. But
Yeah, that was the only thing I was.
Yeah.
Put a little note out there
yeah,
about
you're
that.
gonna see as we redo bylaws, there's gonna be fines attached to them because we've not had in the past bylaws where we had POA fines attached to them. We've always been told that they hold, like, there's more teeth to enforcement when you have that in a bylaw. So we now have a nuisance beaver bylaw that's got fines. We have a daytime burning, that's what I call the bylaw. That's got fines. We're gonna have our clean yards bylaw has fines. And I believe there's a 4th one now, right? Short-term rental has fines. So as we, you know, the next one might be noise. We might look at a noise bylaw again and attach some fines to that where it's like, you know, POA tickets. The next one that we were going to tackle hopefully this year is a property standards bylaw. It's an old bylaw as well. Some municipalities combine them with the clean yards bylaw. We'll keep them separate. Some municipalities keep them separate. The only thing with that is because we already have a property standards bylaw, we should actually have a property standards committee. It's legislated under the building code that we should have it. Part of my time at the municipality, there was 1 year ago. Don't ask me the date. But I know if you look at the code, if you have a bylaw, then you should have a committee. So I think in the future, when that bylaw gets tackled and we add fines to it, we might be looking at setting up a committee. It's probably a committee that will only meet when it's an issue. Right? So as we go, we'll try to attach those fines to bylaws so that it's more easily enforced, right?
So basically, the appeal process that we prepare our journey with property standards, it needs to be able to, it doesn't need to be much, right? It's the first step. There's an appeal, it could come to council, but I believe right now it's, that would be for.
So what we could do, Mayor Rochford, is because this has to go to May to approve short form wording in the fines. The appeal process won't affect any of that. So I believe, Monica, we can send that off to Megan and make it a change. Put an appeal process at a later date. Now, North Middlesex, what they said was, if you don't like what staff done basically, or you want to appeal it, you go to the property standards committee and or council. Well, we don't have a property standards committee. So do we want it to be, they have a process to come to council to make the formal complaint? We pulled it out and I'll tell you why, because in discussion with staff, my answer to all residents is if you don't like what we do, council members represent you. You have 10 minutes, go plead your case to council. Anybody can present to council. So we wouldn't hide that from the fact, like it wouldn't be, sorry, It's a done deal. You don't have any other way of dealing with this. Our answer is always, if you don't like it, we're enforcing a bylaw passed by council. It's their rules. If you don't like it, we'll speak to them, and that's council. So we can highlight that in a sentence or two as an appeal process. If council's okay with it, we can make, put a sentence in. Are we able to make a change tomorrow before we send it to the ministry?
Yes.
So we can do that tomorrow before sending it.
The reason we want to send it prior to third reading is, once we have third reading and we send it to MAG and MAG is not in favor of the fines, then we have to bring it back to council.
Amend it.
And now it's able to be this, find some paper, base them off on it, send it back, we have a third read, and then we send it back to them saying it's certified, it's just that they distribute it to the city of North Bay, they register it, they give it.
But those, if you want to put that line in, you're better off to do it now than have to make revisions later on because it's not for.
Part of
Yeah.
the addition that council wants to see.
And our fines, I looked at our fines are in line with everybody else that has that short wording or
Yeah.
bylaw.
I believe if you're unreasonable, then the MAG's gonna want you to reduce your fines anyway. I'd rather them approve what goes forward. The idea with this one is to get it to them and get it back so we can start enforcement. It could take them, I don't know, during the pandemic, they were very fast. Everybody was working from home, it was remote. So they cut some corners and we had one approved in less than a month, right, Monica? I'm hopeful that the turnaround time is that. We're dealing.
Your red tape was cut.
Yeah. We're dealing with an issue right now that we gotta go the route of the old bylaw because we don't have a current one. So it's a little bit more of an issue, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
So once that bylaw comes forward, it's a better way of approaching things.
So tonight we'll read the first and second reading, and with the addition of a one.
Council wants to see, and we'll fix that.
Perfect.
I'll move in a second, please. And Rogers. Bylaw number 2023-20, being a bylaw to provide regulations for maintaining land, clean and clear condition, be read a first and second time this 9th day of May, 2023.
All in favor? They won't carry. Thank you so much. And again, this is great work. Well done. Come to see, I guess, two readings, Monsieur Trisley.
Yeah, so this is tax ratio bylaw, not rates, but ratio for 2023. We've got to have this passed prior to passing our budget. Because once the budget is passed, we set the tax rates based on the tax ratios. This is the same tax ratio bylaw we've had since I've worked for the municipality. So residential farm class property is a 1. That's the benchmark. Residential is always a 1. And then you base everything else against the residential rate. So anything commercial that's occupied and any industrial occupied, they're also 1. What that means is our residents pay the same taxes on $100 of assessment as our commercial industrial base does, except education, which is dictated by the province. So in a lot of communities, industrial and commercial properties pay a lot more than what a resident does. So this is basically how we're shifting the burden. So right now, the burden is the same for residential over industrial over commercial. The only difference is when you have industrial and commercial excess vacant lands, they're below a 1. The reason being, if you look at something like commercial and it's vacant, the idea is the business owner is not making any money on it, so you're giving them a break. So if you look at commercial vacant, it's 0.7. So on, just say their value of their property is $100, they're actually being taxed on $70, not 100. That's how that works. Pipeline property is above. It's a 1.52 basically, and then farmland and managed forests is always quarter of what your residential is. That's set by the province. All of these rates fall within, the Ministry of Finance puts out a range of fairness, they call it. This came out back and I believe it might have been when the assessment system came out, I think it was around 98. They said, this is the range of fairness. You can't go below, you can't go above, this is where you're at. So something like, or your grandfathered in. So something like pipeline today, I believe you couldn't keep the pipeline at 1. Like if you were a new municipality, you couldn't do pipeline at 1.52. You'd have to be below that in range of fairness. What East Ferris decided to do back then was, why give the pipeline a break? The pipes in the ground, they're not pulling them out, the assessment's there. Why would we reduce their burden and shift that on the residential taxpayer? So they're above the range of fairness, but we're allowed to keep them there. As soon as we reduce them, you can never go back up. So why give it a break is the idea with that. The rest kind of just fall in line with provincial assessment rules. So that's the,
Summary?
that's the summary.
Any questions? Neil?
So I think I was at Roma. They were talking about commercial occupied being above one. And it was, and when we said we are one, they were kind of surprised about that. So I'm I'm curious about it.
Years ago, what I was told was council wanted to be attractive to business. So right now, even if you look at it, our residential tax base, 98% is residential in East Ferris. The idea back then was, if we keep tax rates low, we'll attract businesses in East Ferris and hopefully get a higher commercial industrial base to give a break to the residents, right?
Okay.
Over time, I mean, I guess if you looked at it now, if we're still at 98%, has that really worked, right? I guess one way to look at it is, we have given our businesses a break. You know, anything they pay above the resident is because of education rate. The range of fairness, I believe, commercial industrial, it may only go up to 1.1. I'd have to check the range for that. But we're allowed to go up to the maximum of the range of fairness. You can't go above it. We would have had to be there years ago when grandfather did like pipeline. So pipeline might be sitting at about a 1.3. But once you reduce it to 1.3, you can never go back up. So why wouldn't we, right?
In all fairness too, we are very attractable to commercial businesses. We are a hub to, or we are a hub to Highway 17, 11. Problem is that the issue is that three-phase power. So in a lot of, we don't have three-phase power. So if we did have three-phase power to come through here, I'm going to tell you right now that the gates would be kicked open and would have a lot more commercial businesses and larger companies. But problem is that that's one of the main issues, because we do get a lot of inquiries and we do get a lot of looks, but because of that, it's a bit of a sticker right there.
So right now, just as information pipeline, the max is 0.7. Your range of fairness is 0.6 to 0.7. We're saying a 1.52.
So it's, yeah.
So actually, you can go over than a residential if you want it. Most ranges right now are between a 0.6 and a 1.1, like that's commercial industrial. That's the range of multi-residential, and a new multi-residential are 1 to 1.1 are right in line. Then you start into shopping centers and things like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it certainly is an advantage that we could promote to a greater degree. But I mean, certainly we've got limitations. We've got no septic, we've got no water, there's a lot of things we don't have, but we do have so many other advantages, right? And so for us, we've never really promoted that part. And how do we do that? I mean, that is a good question for the Economic Development Committee to see how do we put that forward as an advantage. Certainly, it is this like degree, you know, sure. Any further questions or comments? Okay, on that note,
Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Kelly, Councillor Tran. Whereas council of the municipality of East Ferris deems it expedient to pass 3 readings of the following bylaw after discussion, be it hereby resolved that a bylaw to set tax ratios for municipality for the year 2023 be read a first, second, and third time, passed and numbered 2023-21, and that said bylaw be signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with the seal of the corporation.
all in favor? C'est bon? Okay, thank you so much. And so on that note, we come to correspondence. Deputy Mayor Iliakis, you've got quite a bit there. Anything specifically that you would like to bring forward for discussion?
Lots of interesting things. I had a lot of reading to do. The township of Archipelago is talking about invasive species, and I'm talking to Antoine about that at Public Works. So I'm not sure if it's a problem or not with our law to bring it forward, so I may address that later down the road. And then The other ones, I would rather the experts talk about it that are involved, but I guess the food truck, should that be a discussion?
Yes, okay, that's it. Yeah, we could actually engage in that now if you would like, while we touch on it. That's item H, Dan Bedard, Crafty Dan's Artisan Food Truck. I'm not sure if you'd like to mention on that or. You want us, it was pretty straightforward, but.
Yeah, well, this one came forward to staff and I've had good discussion with Greg on how to go about it. Just a bit of background for council's information. We don't have like licensing bylaw in terms of like anything that governs how we go about with food trucks, right? Bit of our discussion was if this is going to be located at the soccer field, that's already a busy parking lot those evenings where we would have to decide and dictate where the truck's actually going to be parked so that it doesn't take up too much parking space. We're limited there. Also, there was a discussion about, is it competing with local businesses that are in the area? We're aware of food at Mully's Farms and at Lucky 13 and at the Quickie. You know, so that's something to look at as well. I like the convenience of parents on a soccer night. You know, they do rush from work on, I think it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, Greg, for soccer. So maybe that is a really good option for them. We kind of felt that this year might have been a year to do like a pilot project. Let's see how it goes, ask for an insurance certificate, put some parameters around where the truck can be and how it's parked and, you know, that kind of thing. And then maybe come back to council after the fact and have a bit of a report to say this is how the summer went. And, you know, maybe we do a survey with parents from the soccer. We know all of them, right? They have to register. So maybe do a survey with them to see how they enjoyed that. But in future years, you can't just select one food truck and say, you're going to be the only one. But because this came forward somewhat, you know, we're getting into summer now, we're getting into soccer, right? That's why we felt this year might be a pilot project. And then if it was good for the community, then next year we might put something like an RFP or some kind of process where you say, you want to operate a food truck, the deadline is this date to submit. There's a license involved with it. There's criteria, like a policy around it. So that's, I guess, kind of our discussion. We both felt it's good for the community. It's something new. It's a food truck. I guess that's all I have to add. Like, do you have anything else, Greg? Yeah, I mean, the pictures were provided to council. I think we sent those on the report, right? The food looks good. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
We're for it, I guess, from staff, but I mean, it's a council decision how they want to go about it.
Any comments or questions on that?
I've talked to a couple of, over the years, a couple of owners of Canadian Tires. They have the sausage go forth. And I remember one owner saying to me, you wouldn't believe in the summer what they pay to be on the premises. Because they're that busy.
Yeah.
So, and I know, Mayor, you and I have talked about, and Steve and I have talked about as well, putting them in the new rec area we're looking at on the lake, both in Osmond, and then perhaps stepping stones on the weekends. Just having something available, because right now, on our lake, especially in Osmond, you just go around the lake, there's no commercial entity that can provide a meal on the lake. Different on Trout Lake, obviously. But and on Trout Lake, they're well used. So it's something to think about. It's a source of revenue, quite frankly.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I know in Calendar, I shouldn't mention our neighboring community, but they did promote the announcement that they would have a hamburger.
Well, I believe the Moose is going to be bringing a food truck to the Calendar waterfront,
Well, I
right?
mean, yes, and everyone, there was very positive reaction to that. So yes.
Yeah.
Certainly. For me, I don't know if any further, I just wanted to mention one, please, go ahead, yeah.
I was just gonna say, I'm in favor of it, but the only thing is, to be fair to our other local businesses that has chip trucks, I think there should be a bylaw, you know, the licenses fee for they're paying in a roundabout way too, right? So I don't know if I know that I want to try different ideas, so I don't know if I want to cap them and how many times they're going to go out. I wouldn't say go out for the whole summer without and let this go freewheeling, because I think we may get some backlash on it.
Yeah.
My other second point is that, well, I don't know, I was trying to think of where he could set up, but I think there should be some sort of wherever Dan's going to set up is that there's got to be some barriers
ribbon off or something like that, because if people are standing there, if people are reversing, I don't know, you may get a good crowd of people, so we gotta kind of do our due diligence with regards of, because we got nothing in place here, so we got to be careful here that somebody doesn't get, accidentally hurt. So there's got to be some sort of area that's being tornadoed off for parking and then whatnot. So say that's a safe area, nobody's going over there, right? So
Yeah.
people that's gonna be purchasing their food and kids and you know what kids are like, they'll just run to the truck to grab whatever, right?
Yep.
So we gotta kind of just slow look down the road here a little bit. So, but no, I think I absolutely, we've had this conversation before. I think it's a good idea, but I think again, we're getting caught and moving faster than we should really have things in place, right? So.
Greg, when does soccer start?
That's mid-June.
Okay.
Yeah, June 6th is when beach volleyball is starting. Yeah.
It's a big area.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
great.
it's fun.
Before we had the fire department, night, so they got some training nights.
It's great.
Nice to see.
I don't know.
It's very nice that from our business community, that there might be, like, for example, like in 15 or at the corner where potentially parents or site would go out to purchase what they need, and they are tax-paying organizations in our community. So we're looking at one newspaper as well, and I just want to express that, because I like it for us to try these and to see. But I think I like the idea that there'll be parameters very clearly defined so that we can defend, and we're doing this on a pilot project. So what if, like, let's say in June, someone does come forward, what if one of the business owners came forward and said, we want to bring a chip truck or something over, what would we do? I mean, you have to, I would suggest that we have to be fair to, so those considerations. So we need to be able to, I guess we're just here giving guidelines to some extent. We're basically saying we're open to the experiment. But we want to be able to ensure that we're fair towards our residents, is what I heard council saying, to our existing businesses. And we want to do it in a way that's safe, health unit, all those preoccupations with rules and regulations. But it is interesting for us to explore because we do have some ideas for the future. We've talked about it as a council for other properties. So this could be a way to do that. I like your idea very much of we could have a debriefing after. And it is for soccer. It's going to be limited to those evenings here at the Columbia Park Hall or one or two evenings.
That was the initial request, was soccer evenings. I believe it's the individual's got granddaughter that plays soccer. So that was the idea. I guess they've probably seen maybe a bit of a need for those evenings and said, here's an opportunity. But if council is open for it, one thing we brought up as well is, like, I'll give you an example. I said, we need parameters because the truck just can't show up at every event. Like, I'll give you an example, trade show. In the past, we've had Ray Sege there with his truck, and we had an agreement where he's exclusive provider of food. You have to have something like that because it's a lot of work goes involved to bring beaver tails there. And then if you have a competitor, it may not be worth bringing out your truck, right? But if this guy shows up to one of those events unannounced, then we can't allow that to happen when we have an agreement with someone else. So that's why the parameters. So if it's only soccer, fine. I guess my recommendation to the council would be, it seems like you're generally in favor of allowing it to happen. I would suggest at no fees this year, and I'll tell you why. I don't think he's got a clue on what his sales would be. And it always reminds me of a canteen at the arena that no longer has an operator because rent became an issue where if the owner themselves aren't working there, they can't hire staff there's just no money. So I think this year was like that test year. So if council's open for it, at the next council meeting, we'll come forward with parameters. Maybe not a full-blown report to council, but parameters around what, and it'll give us an opportunity to talk to Dan to say you need insurance. You need to have, a permit from the health unit like anybody else would certainly. We'll look at the safety consideration of the Cordell parking lot, the Cordell parking lots, where it should go and what can be put in there in terms of safeguards. But put those parameters around and come back to council on the 23rd. The reason I asked when soccer starts was this gives us time. If soccer is starting in about a month, we have time to come back to council with parameters. And if you're good with that, we go ahead. We try it on a trial run this year. And then we have a meeting with Dan afterwards, but but with the intention that future years might be a licensing cost. Right? But if, and to answer Mayor Rochford's question, if someone comes forward now and says, hey, I'd like to have a chip truck for pike tournaments on South Shore Boat Launch. Well, I think case by case, we'll deal with that one. That one comes forward and we'll say, sure, well, or if they say we want it on weekends, I think we'll deal with this for case by case. For next spring, we have to have a policy in place on how we're gonna deal with food, like, food truck establishments that want to operate in these fairs, if everyone's okay with it that way.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. good.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, so, okay, item H struck off our list.
I'm gonna let the other two. Cause the one item, lost my. One, I think we're gonna talk about later.
I should be,
Right now as well?
I needs to be discussed in camera if there's a discussion around the sale of any municipal land.
I think we should go in camera.
Yes.
Yes.
So what happened was the letter had to be public because it was asked to be public and
Yeah.
there's nothing in that letter that should be in camera. The discussion around selling municipal land needs to be in camera.
Yeah.
So I would believe we have, there's actually two discussions that need to happen tonight about the sale or potential purchase of lands.
Okay.
That should be in camera.
All right. Anything,
Yeah, I'm gonna let.
you're good? Okay.
We'll talk.
I attended the board meeting for Phenom yesterday morning and part of yesterday afternoon. Long story short, Phenom sold out for the trade show goes in Paris now. And I think a record number of delegates have shown up, which is excellent. And one of the major items on the board agenda was bail reform. And they met with the executive of Phenom has met with some of the police chiefs across the major cities in Northern Ontario. Everybody's got the same problem. It's called catch and release. And everybody's had enough and they're up to here. It's going on across Ontario. So we're looking at actually having a formal investigation into it and looking for data and some numbers.
Oh, that's good.
So that we can go back to the legislature in Toronto and say, what's going on? All we've heard is they're going to do a study, they're going to change things. Well, nothing's changed, so. And it's become ridiculous. And I think one member of our council would know more than anybody else how ridiculous it's become. Is that correct? Enough said. So anyway, that was one of the major focuses. Other things are coming up, but Phenom and the videos and so forth have been phenomenal and they continue on and they're going to be expanded. And you mentioned Guy Paquette. Once again, the northern government agencies are very involved in the funding of those videos.
Yes. And they did contact, I do have an email, I apologize.
Good, no problem.
It just.
Because I think they want to speak to
So
our doctor as well.
correct, so
Okay, so,
as soon as I,
oh, good. That's
sorry about that.
a nice reminder.
Okay,
At any rate, it was well attended and it was worth going. But I had to get back. I wanted to be here for, make sure we had a quorum
yes.
and other issues as well. Thank you.
Any comments or questions on Phenom? No, c'est bon. Councillor Chan?
Just again, kind of covered most of it, the North Bay Matter Conservation. So it was, they talked about planning and development, Ontario Building Code destinations for septic systems and the capital research with Lentry Steel. They did bring up a new fact sheet dealing with beavers. So I forwarded that on to our CEO. So I thought it'd be a good poster to put on our website. Also, there was a mention that there was other municipalities. They looked at our bylaw and there was a lot of good discussions and things were taken out of it. And there was some questions on it. So other municipalities having some issues too with some beaver dams and whatnot too. So it's they were looking at that ours specifically, and so it kind of really worked out really well. So yeah. So anyway, so I moved some information on to the CEO, And also I'll just give our good friends near North Cram Stoppers a shout out. They got their 25th annual near North golf tournament. And that's on the 23rd of June at Highview Golf Course. It's a 4-person scramble. Fees are $100. And if you don't golf or anything, and if you still want to make a donation, you can still do that to a great organization that supports our whole district in our area. So it's a really good cause. So anyway, just give me a little shout out. So that's all I have.
But on that note, for the commission, or approval of the correspondence.
Can I have a mover and seconder, please? Seriously. Council approve the correspondence and information as circulated with the agenda of May 9th, 2023.
All in favor? C'est bon, carry. Thank you so much. So we move to refer from our last council meeting was the support for the resolution from the township of Chisholm. I think council had said they'd like to see the same resolution. So I do proceed.
Sure, a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Trahan. That council for the municipality of East Ferris supports the resolution from the township of Chisholm regarding options for consultation with communities that pertain to Ecole Elementary Catholique Saint Thomas d'Aquin due to increased enrollment. And further, that a copy of this resolution be sent to neighboring municipalities who have students that could feed into Ecole Elementary Catholique Saint Thomas d'Aquin and that Conseil Scolaire Catholique Franco-North.
All in favor? C'est bon, carry. Thank you so much. I do want to mention quickly at our last meeting, as well as part of our correspondence, we had given, we had agreed and supported a recommendation or suggestion by Deputy Mayor Louis Akers that we respond to the letter from, from the government of Ontario with respect to the, I guess they call it planning policy statement. And so basically, we've seen the letter that we started the first draft, and Deputy Mayor Reactors, you made some excellent additions. So basically, at this point, we're not yet finished because we still have to get our input from our great planner. And on that note, I know he's been very busy. So that's the final step, and then we'll have our final letter. But we still have another month. We had basically, I think it was a 60-day comment period, and it goes to June 6th. So we're still okay. But I think we're heading in the right direction. It's an excellent letter to moving forward. So thank you for that. That's just great. So it will come back to us on our Friday mail outs. Approval of accounts payable.
A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Kelly and Akers. Council approved the general accounts for the municipality of East Ferris as indicated in the check register dated May 9th, 2023 in the amount of $663,513.52.
On favor? C'est bon, good. And so other business, there being none, you will move directly into in camera.
A mover and a seconder, please. Councillor and Kelly. This meeting proceeds in camera session at 7:33 p.m. under section 239(2), subsections 3 and D of the Municipal Act 2001 in order to address a matter pertaining to proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board.
So that would be two, pending acquisition of lands, maybe put an S to lands?
Yeah,
Okay.
two, and then labor relations or employee negotiations.
So all in favor? Oh, on that note. Good night.
Thanks for coming.
Good night, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Kim, give me a show Friday or Saturday, or whatever you want to meet.
Perfect. I'll send you an email.
Sure.
All of the.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no problem.
And we can make a time from there,
Each easier.
probably Saturday.
Okay, yeah,
Would be the best way.
that works.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
alrighty.